Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Aidan, and today I'm going to be trying to make kimchi for the very first time. Now, I might not have a lot of experience making kimchi, but I do have a lot of experience eating kimchi, so hopefully that'll help me to get the flavors just right. Now I think it's time to introduce the guest star of our video. This is Frank. He's a napa cabbage, or in Korean, that's bechu, and I bet you after we're done with him, he's going to taste absolutely delicious. Anyway, kimchi takes a long time to make, so I better get started right away. So without further ado, let's begin.
So as you can see, Frank here has a lot of wilted leaves around the outside, so to start off this recipe, we will remove those and set them aside. Don't throw them away, we can use them later to make a delicious side dish. Removing just the first 1 to 2 layers of leaves should be good. As long as the leaves underneath look healthy and green, then it should be okay. I've wanted to learn how to make kimchi for a long time now, and I'm glad that I finally have the opportunity to make it. I scoured the internet for some good and reliable recipes and then combined various aspects of them to make something that I thought would be close to what I'm used to eating at home. The two main recipes I referenced were from Mongchi and Modern Pepper, so I will link those in the description below in case you want to check those out as well. Alright, now Frank's outside is looking nice and healthy and beautiful. We're gonna rip him in half now. So let's make a vertical cut through the base, just the dense white part, and then using our hands, we'll grab each side and rip it apart. Sorry Frank, but it was really satisfying to tear you in half. Now you should be left with 2 even halves. Then just repeat that process with each of the halves to get quarters. So once again, just make a cut through the base of the cabbage and then rip it in half. Gently, that is. Now we're going to remove the innermost leaves from the center of each quarter. These leaves are very young and sweet, so we're going to use them a bit later to make a fresh kimchi dish called Geotjeori. So just remove those and set them aside. Then we can use a knife to remove some of the dense core part of the cabbage. Just make sure to leave enough so the leaves have something to attach to. We want all the leaves to stay together until they're ready to eat. Next we're going to place Frank in a bowl and give him a nice cold shower. Make sure to get water in between all the leaves to remove any dirt that could be in there. The water will also help in our next step by making sure the salt sticks to the cabbage. So once all of our cabbage has been rinsed, we can take some coarse salt and sprinkle it in between all the leaves. Don't put a ton of salt on each leaf, but also don't be shy with it, and try to sprinkle it evenly across the whole leaf. For this whole cabbage, I used around 3/4 of a cup of salt. The salt will draw out a lot of the water from the cabbage and make it nice and bendy. This process can take up to a day, so some people opt to buy pre-brined cabbage, but I thought for my first time making kimchi, I should try the brining process myself. Once all the leaves have been salted, we're going to let it sit and brine for around 6 to 12 hours. It may take a bit longer or shorter than that depending on how much salt you used and how dense the cabbage is, but you should check it every hour or so to see how wilted the cabbage is. Also, make sure to come and flip the cabbage over ever so often to keep everything brining at the same rate. The cabbage is done brining when you can fold the thickest part of the leaves in half without breaking it. While our cabbage is brining, we can begin chopping some other vegetables to make our kimchi paste. This is a Korean radish. I'm not going to bother naming it though because, oh, there it goes. But we're going to cut off around 2 cups of the radish and make matchsticks out of it. They should be about the width of a chopstick to make sure that they don't fall apart when we mix the paste later. We're also going to chop up 1 large carrot into matchsticks just like before, and into the bowl they go along with the radish. Next we can chop around 6 large green onions into segments around 2 inches long. These will add great flavor to our kimchi and a nice crunchy texture when they ferment. We're also going to do the same to a handful of garlic chives. Now is the time to make our sweet rice slurry. So in a pot, bring around 1.5 cups of water and 2 tablespoons of sweet rice flour to a boil. I'm using mochiko because I hear it works really well for kimchi, but I'm sure other sweet rice flours will also work fine. Once it comes to a boil, the mixture will start to thicken, and at that time you can add around 2 tablespoons of brown sugar and stir to dissolve. Then take it off the heat and cool completely. The rice slurry is very important for making kimchi because it will act as food for the bacteria during the fermentation process. The simple carbohydrates in the brown sugar will break down quickly to help get the process kick-started. Then the starch from the rice flour acts as a more complex card that will sustain the reaction over time. In a blender, place 6 to 8 cloves of garlic along with around 1/2 of a thumb-sized piece of ginger, 1/2 of a white onion, and 1/4 of an Asian pear. Then pour a couple tablespoons of your rice slurry on top and blend until smooth. As I was blending, I cut up the rest of the pear and ate it with my sister. We both love Asian pears, and it's been a long time since we got to enjoy one on its own, so it was completely gone in under a minute. Once your mixture is done blending, you can go ahead and set it aside because we're going to use it in our next step. So in a large bowl, we're going to combine the rest of our rice slurry with the blended mixture and about a half cup of fish sauce. This is optional, but I'm also going to add around 2 tablespoons of salted baby shrimp, or seochot in Korean. They're going to add such a nice flavor to the paste, and just look at them, they're so cute.
Boom. A child. No.
Give that a quick mix, and then I'm going to add 1 cup of gochugaru, Korean red pepper flakes. This is what's going to determine how spicy your kimchi is, so you can adjust it according to your own taste. Some people only put a half cup in and others put 2 or more cups in, but I think that 1 cup was fine for me. Then we can just slide in our vegetables from earlier and get in there with our hands and mix it all together. At the end, take a bit of radish and try it to see if you like it. If you think it needs more of something, go ahead and adjust the seasoning as needed. Also make sure to reserve around a half cup of your paste to use later. While our kimchi is brining, I have a bit of time for a special thank you. You may have noticed that I'm wearing a different apron today, and that's because I received this amazing custom apron from a family friend. I love this apron so much. It's in my signature red color with the addition of this amazing hand-stitched channel logo, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for making it for me. I'm going to wear it from now on in all of my videos. Now, back to Frank. By this point, Frank is done brining and is very floppy, but he's still covered in salt, so we have to rinse it off to make sure he's not too salty. You want to try and get all the salt out of the cabbage because the kimchi paste we made earlier is already plenty salty from the fish sauce and the salted shrimp. So just rinse it a couple times, make sure to get water in between all the leaves, and gently squeeze out the water from the cabbage. Be very careful and don't squeeze too hard. Frank is very sensitive right now and we don't want to hurt his feelings. You can check the saltiness by tearing off a bit of the leaf and eating it, and if it still tastes salty, then just keep rinsing until it is no longer salty. Now we're going to take our delicious kimchi paste from before and put it in the largest bowl you own. For me it was this big metal bowl, but you can use whatever you have. I wouldn't recommend using plastic because this paste can stain, but if that's all you have then it's fine. Just try to wash it out soon after you're done. Once we've done that, we can take our cabbage and spread some of the paste in between all the leaves. Just take around 2 to 3 tablespoons of the mix and spread it evenly across the leaves, making sure to get all the way down to the base. If you have some kitchen gloves, now's the time to pull them out. If you're making a lot of kimchi, your hands will be bright red after this process, and may sting a little bit from the pepper flakes. I didn't have any gloves, and since I'm only making 1 cabbage, I thought it would be fine for me to use my bare hands. I just need to make sure I don't wipe my eyes for a couple hours. Once there is paste in all the layers, rub some on the outside, and then use one of the outside leaves to wrap it up like a little cabbage baby. Then place it in a large container that has a lid. Once all of our kimchi is in the container, clean up the outside and loosely place on the lid. Our kimchi is going to ferment and we need to leave a little space for the gas to escape. Believe me, you do not want a kimchi explosion in your kitchen. Then, just find a cool and dry place away from direct sunlight to store your kimchi for 2 to 3 days. During this time, the kimchi will naturally ferment, which gives the kimchi its signature flavor and mellows out all the seasonings that we put into the paste, like the fish sauce and the salted shrimp. After the first 2 days, check on it to see how it's doing. If you press on it with a spoon, you should see little bubbles escaping and the spoon should fill up with juice. The first time I checked on it, there weren't that many bubbles, so I let it ferment for another day. After it is sufficiently fermented, move it to the fridge to stop the fermentation process. Then it can be taken out and enjoyed anytime. One tip I discovered during this process is that it may be helpful to place your container on a plate or a baking tray just in case some liquid seeps out. I filled my container pretty full, so I'm really glad that I thought to do this before letting it ferment, otherwise I would have had kimchi juice everywhere all over my counter. However, you can avoid this issue by making sure to use a large container that holds your kimchi comfortably. Just make sure to place some plastic wrap on top to limit its exposure to air. After 2 to 3 days of fermenting and hours of work, it's finally time to look at our beautiful kimchi. Now don't go just yet, I still have not one, not two, but 3 more recipes to show you using various parts of the kimchi making process. Remember before when I said not to throw away those parts of the cabbage we removed earlier? Well, this is the part where we bring those back to make some delicious sides. So the first dish we're going to make makes use of those fresh inner leaves of the cabbage that we took out of the core of the cabbage before brining. We're going to make some delicious fresh kimchi, or gochujang in Korean. This dish really highlights the tenderness and the sweetness of those inner leaves, and it's a great side dish to have with rice or other foods. So for this recipe, we'll need those inner cabbage leaves, and we'll just place them in our kimchi paste bowl. No use in getting another bowl dirty. And to that, we're going to add our half cup of kimchi paste that we reserved earlier, along with around a tablespoon of both sesame oil and honey. Then we can just mix it around, and now we've got our gochujang. It was so crunchy and delicious, and the honey and sesame pair really well with the flavors in the kimchi paste, so I would definitely recommend making this side. For our second recipe, we're going to use those outer leaves of the cabbage we removed before cutting the cabbage in half. We're going to make them into cabbage pancakes, or gochujang in Korean. So the first thing that we're going to do is rinse off those leaves to remove any dirt and to get rid of any parts that are too brown or not good to eat. Then we can just pat them dry with a paper towel. We want the surface of the leaves to be completely dry so the pancake batter can stick to the leaf. Now we're going to make a super easy and simple Korean pancake mix. So in a bowl we're going to add 2 cups of flour, a half cup of cornstarch, 1 tablespoon of baking soda, a teaspoon of salt, a half teaspoon of garlic powder, and a half teaspoon of onion powder. Then we'll just give that a mix to make sure everything is combined. Then to that we're going to gradually add 2 cups of water until our batter reaches a thick, soupy consistency. Now to cook our pancakes, we're going to heat up around a tablespoon of oil in a large pan. Then, one at a time, we'll take our leaves and run them through the batter. We don't want a lot of batter on each leaf, so use a couple fingers to remove the batter before placing it flat in the pan. Cook on one side until it's brown and crispy on the bottom, and then flip it and cook it on the other side. Then you can remove it and place it on a plate. Once all of our leaves are done, we can make a quick dipping sauce to eat with our jeon. So for the dipping sauce, we'll mix around a 1/4 cup of soy sauce with around 2 tablespoons of water, 1 teaspoon of rice vinegar, a drizzle of sesame oil, and a sprinkle of red pepper flakes. Then we can cut our pancakes up into bite-sized pieces and enjoy with our sauce. I think that the two pair really well together because the pancake is nice and crispy, and the sauce adds so much flavor that makes it so delicious. And to think we made this from leftover scraps! The last recipe I'm going to show you is actually one that we can make with the kimchi itself, a delicious kimchi fried rice. So for this dish, we're going to start by scrambling 2 eggs in a medium pan until they're done and then setting them aside. Then to the pan we can heat up a bit more oil and saute 2 cloves of minced garlic and some diced onions until the garlic is fragrant. Then we can add around 3/4 of a cup of our kimchi that has been roughly chopped and stir fry that for around a minute. Then we can add around 2 cups of day-old rice along with some soy sauce, rice vinegar, and sesame oil. Stir to mix everything together and then add some gochujang to give it some nice flavor and a pretty red color. Then just add your eggs back in along with some chopped green onion and stir to combine. Then all you have to do is plate it and you have just finished your kimchi fried rice. So let's take a look at all of our delicious cabbagey dishes now, shall we? So today we made kimchi for the first time. This was a super fun experience for me, and even though it was a lot of work, I think the kimchi turned out super well and I would love to try it again sometime in the future. Initially, after making the paste, I was a little worried that some of the flavors were unbalanced or too strong, but when I tasted it after the fermentation process, all the flavors tasted much more cohesive and everything worked really well together. Also, you may be wondering how long does kimchi last? Well, it depends on how well you store it, but if you keep it away from air in a cold place, I think your kimchi should be good for at least 2 to 3 weeks or even a month. Some people keep their kimchi for much longer than that. Traditionally, kimchi is made in large batches at the beginning of winter and then eaten periodically over the course of the year, so you can store kimchi for a long time without it going bad. Personally, I like my kimchi on the more fermented side, so I'm willing to let my kimchi stick around a long time. However, once your kimchi starts to get a little sour, don't just throw it out. This kimchi is perfect for making a delicious and hearty stew that I actually made previously on this channel. I'll link that video in the description in case you want to check it out. I also really enjoyed the other dishes that we were able to make with the extra pieces from the kimchi making process. The gochujang was tender, crunchy, and lightly sweet, and I loved the texture of the young center leaves of the cabbage. I gave some to my mom and she could not get enough of it. I also really enjoyed the cabbage pancakes. The pan-fried batter along with the dipping sauce really satisfied that craving for some crunchy, savory food, but the dipping sauce kept it from feeling too greasy, so overall it was really good. And finally, the kimchi fried rice. I loved everything about this dish, from its simplicity to its beautiful color and especially its wonderful flavor. I hope everybody gets a chance to try this with their kimchi to see how versatile kimchi can be as a cooking ingredient. With that being said, thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and consider sharing it with your friends. As always, I have all the measurements and ingredients in the description box below, and if you end up trying any of these recipes, let me know how it goes. Otherwise, stay tuned and I will see you next time with a new video. Bye!